guys, welcome back to the channel. Tiffany here with another unboxing video, and this one is going to be sponsored by Anycubic, and I'm going to be specifically unboxing and reviewing the Photon Mono M7 Pro. And if at any point you're interested in this printer, make sure to click on my link. I'll have it in the description, as well as I'll have a discount code to help you save a little bit of money. So yeah. And for unboxing this resin printer, I was actually really happy that I could do it fully by myself, as it didn't weigh too much and I was able to lift it. It was all pretty easy to pull all of the foam parts off and expose the printer inside, and everything was pretty well kept all together. And this printer also came, besides its whole shell, a print platform, a resin vat. It came with a Wi-Fi antenna, some hex keys, protective equipment. It came with 5 filters for your resin. It had 2 scrapers, a leveling paper, of course your manual, a USB drive, power cord, a screen protector kit, as well as an autofill unit. And then on to assembling, and it was relatively pretty simple. There was only a few steps that you had to follow, and one of them that you did not have to do was actually level it. It did say that it was already designed requiring no leveling for its first use, so that was pretty nice. But it did state that if it does fall on the ground, or you're changing the print platform or LCD screen, things like that, that you would need to re-level. And I'll get a little bit more on this later. And of course, the first step, as always, is your screen protector, so putting that on, and then was installing the Wi-Fi antenna onto the back, as well as the power cord, and turning it on. Then to set up everything with the touchscreen, and I'll note that the touchscreen was really nice because it was a lot larger than what I was previously using, as well as the touchscreen was really sensitive, so you did not have to actually push hard. It was just a small light tap, so you can navigate through everything pretty simple. But basically, you're setting up what language you're going to be using this in, as well as if this is in China or global, as those are the 2 options. And it'll then walk you through the rest of the steps for assembling this printer. So next was then installing the platform, and the knob at the top was really large, so it was nice because I could easily work with it rather than fighting with a small little knob. Followed by installing the resin vat. Now this one is a bit different than others, as it actually has a device on the left side that sticks up, and this is the dynamic temperature control that will help and make the resin heat up while you are using it, which is really helpful if you're working in a basement like me, because it means all of your resin will constantly be at the right temperature and you don't have to worry about the constant change with the weather. But once you align it to where it sits, there are 2 screws on the sides that you will need to tighten. Then was installing the resin autofill unit, which actually this was my first time ever using one, and I found it pretty cool. And I'll get into more of those specifics later on in the video, but basically you install it on the back right side. It will plug in, and then there are 2 screws that you need to insert to hold it in place. I will note that it will replace the air filter that you can get to attach there, but with this specific printer, they do have another option for an air filter, which I would highly recommend, as it does smell, so I would recommend having some type of air purifier to help with the fumes. And you can get their other version of their air purifier, which is their Air Pure 2.0. It's around $50. It has a spot on the back of this printer next to the Wi-Fi spot, a little circle, and that is where you would put the attachment there, and you would vent it outside a window. But back to setting up the resin autofill unit, and Anycubic sent me 3 of their resins to try out, which include a water wash resin 2.0 in the color gray, a plant-based resin 2.0 in clear, and then the standard resin 2.0 in white. And we're going to start off with the standard one first, but basically you will need to unscrew unscrew the lid, remove the seal, and in that box it should have came with another type of lid with this two metal wand-like pieces sticking out of it. And that is what's going to be screwed on tight. And there are two spots that you're going to be attaching the tubes that are connected to the resin autofill unit. So you'll want to attach those tightly in place, and this is what's going to cause the suction from the device to suck all of the resin out and then put it into your vat, as well as vice versa for refilling the bottle after, followed by plugging in the last little cord to the printer. Then the next step was connecting it to your phone. They do have a specific app, which I used the entire time. I found this extremely helpful, as this app would tell you if there were any issues happening with the print. And the last step for setting up this printer is inserting your USB drive to the side. And this USB drive actually comes with a bunch of files already attached to get you started for doing test prints, which this included 6 different files. One was the resin test file, and this was to help calibrate on your resin that you're using to determine what would be the best for light to speed for that type of resin. It also had 3 decorative bowl-like pieces that were all different types. One was to test high speed, one was to test default resin fast, and then default resin normal, as well as it had 2 towers. One was a high speed and the other was a default fast. And I started by printing the test file of the small 8 pieces for calibrating what type of resin you're using. And by starting the print, it automatically started the resin autofill. And for this device, it will actually lower the front part into the vat, and then we'll start sucking the resin out of the bottle and inserting it into your vat to the correct height that it needs. And while doing this, the front screen will actually have a picture that will say in feed and show you that it is doing it, and will tell you once it is complete. Once your print is finished, it does have the option to refill into the bottle. And if you choose that option, it'll show you a new type of icon saying unloading. You can use a plastic scraper to assist. And by doing this, it makes it so you don't have to unscrew the whole vat and then dump it into the resin bottle and create an absolute mess like all other types of printers I've always had to use. And so this made cleanup so much easier. It does recommend using a spatula or scraper to help assist with just moving the resin towards the nodule, so that way it can suck it up and put it back into the bottle faster. This will take a little bit of time. I found that it was a bit slow at first, but once I figured out the process, I got it to work a lot faster. And it does have a sensor also when the bottle is full. So it'll let you know on the screen and it will stop refilling. So you don't have to worry about potentially overfilling your resin bottle. As well as it does have a sensor that when it's actually printing, if more resin needs to be put into the vat, it will automatically do that while it is printing. So you don't have to worry about any of that. It'll give you an indication if you need to add more resin or change out the bottle. Now, my first starter resin print test, we're all using the standard resin V2, which was in color white, and this one actually was my favorite resin that they provided. It was extremely strong, as well as it was less prone to breaking while still maintaining a certain degree of flexibility. And this is very important to me as I make cosplays and props professionally for a living, so this is something that I am always looking into when it comes to me choosing materials that I print in, and this one was my favorite. And the amount of detail that I got from this printer was really impressive to me. It's in 14K resolution, as well as the print speed was extremely fast. And it's able to do this thanks to a few firmware upgrades, which would be the brand new Light Turbo 3.0, adding the 14K screen, which increases the light energy by 60.6%, which then shortens the curing time. And then having the dynamic temperature control resin vat will help keep the resin circulating and keep it to the proper temperature, improving resin heating efficiency. And for the speed with the standard resin, it only takes 2.69 seconds to accomplish the 0.1 millimeter layer height, which achieves 130 millimeters an hour for its print speed, as well as for their high speed resin, the 2.0. This cuts down to 2.11 seconds to print a single layer that is at 0.1 millimeter layer height, which is a little over 21% quicker than the standard resin. So that's a max of 170 millimeters an hour to print at 0.1 millimeter layer height, which is additionally 30% faster than your standard resin. As well as for the actual build volume of this printer, it is 223 millimeters by 126 by 230 millimeters. And this was very impressive, especially from upgrading from my last printer, which actually was the Anycubic Photon Mono 4K, which was still a great printer. But for this one, the build volume is just so much larger, and this is extremely helpful when you have to make large props. Now, after printing a bunch of things with the standard resin, I did want to switch over, and I went next to the Anycubic provided Water Wash Resin 2.0 in the color gray. Now, this resin really piqued my interest as it specifically can be washed with water instead of having to use 99% alcohol, and which makes it a lot more cost effective and safer, as well as it's more environmentally friendly. So it made cleanup a lot easier, and it means that you won't have to buy all the extra equipment to clean your prints. And a big plus is this resin is pretty odorless, so that's a big plus compared to the others. It does have a lower shrinkage rate for better high precision models, and it has an anti-yellowing formula, so you don't have to worry about things fading. But a downfall with all resin printers is normally the platform. You have to take your print off of that, and you have to scrape it a lot. They don't just easily come off. And normally the very first upgrade I get to any resin printer is having a attachment where I do a magnetic plate that I can have a flexible plate attached to it, which makes taking off resin prints so much easier. And after printing a bunch and breaking some, getting off, specifically using this resin, I'm going to do an upgrade on that. So I highly recommend doing that if you are going to be using this resin, as it does tend to be a little bit more fragile. I personally won't be using this one just because most of my props are going to be extremely large and I need them to be really durable. But for doing miniatures and high decorative figurines and things, just getting the flexible platform attachment instead. But speaking on that line of getting this attachment, and it will specifically come up with foreign object detected, please check. And that means you're gonna basically need to re-level. So just as a heads up, if you do decide to do this upgrade. And at this point, I moved on to the last resin to test out that they sent me, and that is their plant-based resin 2.0 in the color clear. And I really liked this resin. It's also environmentally friendly. It doesn't have a particular smell, and it uses a soybean oil as raw material, so it's really nice. And I was able to get amazing details with this specific resin. And I loved being able to see the light on each layer with this because it is clear. You're able to see precisely where the LCD screen lights up to cure each of the resin lines. And I use this to test out the 3 pre-made files on the cloud that Anycubic provided. Now, a few other things about this printer I haven't touched on yet is that you do have access to control your Z axis in case you need to 0 to home again, and you can control that through the controls part, which is the third button down on the left, and you can just use the arrows to go up and down. It will raise and lower the platform. As well as if you need to fine-tune some of the exposure time, you can do that with how many seconds per the UV light. It has temperature control. It has a part where you can do the resin autofill, the feed and retrieval part. You can do all of the checks through this part. The auto heating, it will show you the temperature. You can also control that, as well as the resin calibration. Now, one of the features that this printer has also is resin level detection. And this was a big deal for me because I didn't realize that my printer was on a unleveled table. And this did actually cause a little bit of issues for me, as I didn't realize my table wasn't level. So I did need to prop up the table a little bit to even it out. Because of the table being uneven, this made it where the detection of the amount of resin in the vat was not accurate. So do be aware if you are printing in the basement on an uneven floor. But some of the other detections that it has that you can control all through the mobile app on your phone. Besides the Revel level detection, there's a failure printing detection to let you know if there's an issue with the print failing. You have release film lifespan management. You have resin residue inspection, which basically is telling you if there is moisture on the LCD screen or one of the places and you need to properly clean it. You have a component connection status detection, as well as you have leveling to let you know, and that is free. And these were all of the standard files that were on the actual Anycubic through the USB and through their cloud. Now, for me, I 100% make all of my CAD files from scratch for my cosplays. And so I always like to test out using my own fabricated files rather than the nice shiny detail ones to get an actual real review and result on those type of files. And for me, at this time, I was actually working on the Angewomon cosplay from the anime Digimon. And I was going to be using this for specifically making the helmet, the leg cuff, as well as the breast cups for this cosplay. As well as I want to try out Anycubic's specific slicer program, as I'd never used that in the past. And for this one specifically, I'm using the Anycubic Photon Workshop slicer. And this one was actually really easy to use. It had all the tools that you needed for putting any of your pieces to get ready for printing. I could scale it, I could copy paste, I could mirror it, I could add text, which was really cool. Small little marks to say my name that were tiny. I was able to hollow out the print through this slicer program and do the drainage holes so that way I wouldn't have any resin floating inside of the print, as well as it has the automatic support system, which you are able to control every single aspect of this, what infill you want, what the wall thickness is, if there is a certain angle that you want the supports to attach, whether they are medium or thin. It was really nice and easy to put everything into this program. And then I was able to save it to the cloud, and because I work upstairs in my studio and my printer is in the basement, I was able to control it through my computer, through their workbench, and have it print from upstairs. You can do this by Wi-Fi, as well as you can put it on your USB drive, or if you want to do it on your phone, you can also do it there. And I really tested the limits of this printer doing the full helmet. I did still have to slice it into 5 pieces, so a left and a right of the base helmet. as well as for each of the 3 bracket-like pieces with fake rivets on them. And all of the print results were relatively clean. I still did have to do a bit of wet sanding cleanup onto all of the surfaces to remove the stair-stepping. I ended up resin welding all of the parts together, and that made it possible for me to then paint the whole thing and attach my phosphate feathers to it to finish out the helm. I'm really happy with the results. It's always a big test to print such a large surface area at a slight curve to see exactly what those print lines will be and how much of a cleanup it was. And I was really impressed by this because typically for a piece this large, I would use an FDM printer versus the resin printer, but the results are just as great, if not even better, because for all of the bracket-like parts, I did this hammered-like texture onto the surface, and because of the resin printer, it was able to still show all of those details onto the final piece, and I'm really happy about that. And if you're interested in seeing the final outcome of my Angewomon cosplay, I'll have a link in the description to that playlist so you can see that over there. But overall, I am really happy with all of the test prints and my actual cosplay prints that I got from using this Photon Mono M7 Pro. And a little bit about it in case I missed it. Its build volume is 223 millimeters by 126 by 230 millimeters. It is a 14K resolution, and its print speed is really fast at 130 millimeters an hour per layer height of 0.1 millimeters. And this is for their standard resin, and for their high-speed resin, that is increased to 170 millimeters per hour. It does have a dynamic temperature control for the resin vat, which greatly helps, especially if you're printing in the basement like me. And it has a resin autofill unit that I found extremely helpful. It has capability of adding an air purifier. It does have a 5-inch colored control screen. It is leveling free, and you can use their Photon Workshop as their slicer software. And it has the capability of using a USB, Wi-Fi, and their Anycubic app to control it. And I do recommend this printer. I am so happy that Anycubic reached out to see if I wanted to test this out, because it is such a massive upgrade from my last one. And if you're interested, you can check out the link for it in the description, as well as I'll have my discount code there to help save a little bit of money. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. If I missed anything about this printer, or if you've used it, let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear your feedback, and I will see you for our next unpacking review video. Much love, guys.